In this lesson, we're going to be finding the volume of a sphere, and our formula for the volume of a sphere is V is equal to 4/3 times pi r cubed. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by looking at number 1. Notice that it shows right here what my, if I move this down, it shows what my radius is, and my radius is 6. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to do V is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. Now, when we're working with this is an entire sphere, so we're just going to plug in for r and it'll solve it. So for instance, this one is 4/3 times pi times our 6. We plug in our 6 for the r cubed, and that's it. So in my opinion, this one is a lot simpler than the others that we've been doing. So let's put that in. We have 4/3 times pi times 6 squared, or not squared, 6 cubed. Let me redo that real quick. 6 cubed. There we go. And then you just hit enter. And that one is 904.8, because we're going to round to the nearest tenth. So that 7, we have a 7, and then we have a 7 after it. And because it's 5 or greater, we move 7 up to 8. So 904.8. Let's go ahead and do the next one. Let's do number 2. We have V is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. So we just plug in our formula. 4/3 times pi. My radius is 11, so it'd be 11 cubed. And if we put that in, we'll go ahead and do 4/3 times pi times 11 cubed, and it is 5,575.3 when rounded, and that's going to be centimeters cubed. And this other one we should have put inches cubed. So let's go to number 3. Number 3 is a little bit different, but not by much. So if we look at number 3, we're still going to use the same formula. 4/3 times pi r cubed. Notice it has a diameter, right? It goes all the way across. We just need half of it. So half of 9, right? We can use our calculator and say, okay, what's half of 9? So that's 9 divided by 2. Put a decimal after the 2. That way it'll automatically convert it into a decimal for you, and it's 4.5. So okay, we have 4/3 times pi times 4.5 cubed. And if we put that into the calculator, we get 381.7. So that one's 381.7 meters cubed. And that's all we need to do for these. So I'll let you finish up the rest. And once you're done with these, then I want you to move on to the next assignment. Alright, on this next assignment, I'm going to start off doing one just to give you an example that's pretty straightforward. Number 2. So this one, it gives us our radius, right? So we use that same formula. V equals 4/3 times pi r cubed. And so that's going to give us 4 over 3 times pi times our r, which is 22, cubed. And let's put that in the calculator. So we have 4 over 3 times pi times 22 cubed. And that's going to give us 44,602.2. And that's going to be inches cubed. Now, we're going to run into a different type of problem. I'm going to move this up a little bit. And notice we're going to do number 4 now. Notice number 4 is half of a sphere. So the only difference is, since it's half of a sphere, we're going to take our final answer and cut it in half. And that's the best way to do it. So let me give you an example. We're going to say V is equal to 4/3 times pi times r cubed. And let's go ahead and plug it in. So notice this is a diameter, right? So we got to cut it in half. We only need the radius. So that means we need to take 34 and divide it by 2, which that's going to give me 17. So now that I've got that, I'm going to go ahead and put it in my formula. So I got 4/3 times pi times 17 cubed. And let's put that in and see what we get. So we got 4/3 times pi times 17 cubed. And that gives us this number, 205.79.5. But notice we only have half of a sphere, right? So since we only got half of a sphere, we need to cut this in half. And we cut it in half by dividing by 2. So if we go ahead and do that, then we'll say, okay, well this is divided by 2 because it's only half of it. And that divided by 2 gives me 10,289.8. And that's in inches. So inches cubed. So that's the only difference is, if it's half of a sphere, we call that a hemisphere. And what we're going to do is we're just going to literally cut it in half at the end. So use the same formula and then just divide it by 2. And that'll give you your answer. So let's take a look at another set of problems, some word problems. And go ahead and complete these, and then I want you to move on to the word problems. Okay, on the word problems, we're going to approach it the same way that we always do. We have 3 steps. One is to underline in keywords and box numbers. 2, we're going to draw it. And 3, we're going to solve it. So let's look at number 1. A scoop of ice cream is in the shape of a sphere. Underline that because it's a keyword. It tells us what shape we're dealing with. The diameter, underline diameter, that's a keyword, of the scoop of ice cream is 2.5 inches. We're going to box it. Find the volume of the ice cream and round to the nearest tenth. So now that we got everything underlined and boxed, we're just going to deal with those items. First, I underline sphere. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a sphere to the best of my ability. And they usually do it like this and then show some little dots coming around. Then it said it had a diameter of the scoop of ice cream. So it has a diameter, so I'm going to draw a diameter. It goes all the way across. Is 2.5 inches. Okay, so that is 2.5 inches. Now find the volume of the ice cream. Okay, well let's use our volume formula. It's a sphere. Volume is equal to 4 over 3 times pi times r cubed. And then we need to round it to the nearest tenth. So let's plug in our numbers. We got 4/3 times pi times 2.5 cubed. And that's going to give me, let's see what we come up with. comes up with 65.4. Because remember, if we have 4 or less, let it rest. So we have 65.4 inches cubed. So there's our answer. Now let's look at another one. And so we're going to find another one. Move it up real quick. We'll do number 6. And number 6 says, Mrs. McCullough is purchasing balloons for a party. Each spherical balloon, so it's spherical, which means it's a sphere, is inflated with helium. How much helium is in the balloon if the balloon has a radius of 9 centimeters and round to the nearest 10? So it tells us that it's spherical, and anytime it says spherical, we know it's a sphere. If it says cylindrical, we know it's a cylinder. So let's go ahead and write this down. It's a sphere. I'm going to draw it. It has a radius. Notice this time instead of saying diameter, it says radius. So it has just a radius, just the half that we need, which is good, makes it easier. And it is 9 centimeters. So we're going to go ahead now and solve for the helium. And remember, helium fills the balloon, right? If it fills the balloon, it's just the volume. So we're going to say the volume is going to be 4/3 times pi r cubed. That means we have 4/3 times pi times 9 cubed. And if we put that into our calculator, it gives us 3,553.6, and we're going to say 0.6 because we have a 3, right? So 4 or less, let it rest. So it's just 3,053.6, and that's going to be in centimeters cubed. Keep in mind, if this was a word problem and it said that there is a half of a sphere, or what we call a hemisphere, we would have divided this value in half, right? So if it's half of a sphere, then you divide this value in half. Otherwise, you just go ahead and plug it in your R and solve it. So I think these are the easiest ones we've done so far, and I'm sure you're going to be real successful with them today and complete all these assignments. So go ahead and get started. If you have any questions, raise your hand. I'll come by and help you.